What up, y'all? Welcome back to the Bees Like That podcast. As always, I'm your host, Chris. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I enjoy every day. Like most of you, I don't necessarily look forward to Fridays because my life isn't so stressful anymore. Well, at least these days, that I need something to look forward to. And like Friday just seems to take its sweet damn time to get here so we can enjoy the 2 days away from the rat race. But lately I have a newfound appreciation for Friday, or a found again, not newfound, but found again, rekindled appreciation for Fridays. Why is that important? What the hell am I talking about? All right, so I'd say over the last 3 months, we'll just say 3 months, I've spoken about this before, but I've made some realizations, I think, in the last 3 months, but overall in my career in services, no matter the role. And I had a conversation with someone this morning who'd asked me, who I hadn't seen for a while, how's work? And so I explained. It's fantastic. The work itself is awesome. Sometimes there's a lot of it. Sometimes it feels like there's so much, in fact, that I won't be able to do it. Somehow I manage. Sometimes it feels really chaotic. Sometimes it's really frustrating. But in the end, ultimately and overall, tremendously rewarding. Couldn't imagine doing anything else. The conversation moved naturally to one where we were talking about burnout, because in the role of this person that I was talking to, they're consistently overwhelmed and just inundated, right? And that part of it, the mental, systemic, and physical fatigue that comes with that, I completely understand. But I recognize something. I can't really pinpoint when I put like a fine point on this or it really hit home. And I'm pretty sure that I've talked about it before, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And that is that it isn't the work. So some people, I think mistakenly say that they're burnt out by this recurring moral injury in this work, whether it be dealing with people in active addiction who just can't pull it together, and some of them end up passing away while in their addiction, or abject poverty or homelessness, or extreme mental health, whatever the case might be, how it's difficult for some people, or they say that those things burn them out, experiencing those things. And while I can agree for sure that it is a lot and it is taxing, it's not easy. This, like many roles, services is not meant for everybody. You got to be pretty resilient. You got to be kind of built different, right, than other people. Some people, and this is the fucked up thing about stereotypes. The reason there are stereotypes is because there are percentages of the maligned population that make that stereotype true. But it's only about those people that fit those criteria. But unfortunately, there's this prevailing idea that people in services are all like super liberal, which is true for a lot of us. Super woke, like on extreme sides of the spectrum, which is true for some, but not everybody is the same. I hold a lot of similar opinions and ideas as most of my colleagues, but there are things that we diverge drastically and like sharply. There's a precipitous like drop off when it comes to me being on board with certain shit. But part of that narrative too is like that these are people among this profession who just aren't tough enough. They don't have the internal fortitude. What I can say is, sure, there are people who fit that definition, but otherwise, most of us in this work, we're tough motherfuckers. Like, we see shit, deal with shit, and it's tough and it's hard, and we walk alongside people going through really tough stuff. A lot of us come from lived experience backgrounds, so we've been homeless, we've been heavily addicted, we've been abused and mistreated, and you name it. I still do not believe wholeheartedly, like full send, stop, full stop, I mean, that it is the work that burns us out. What I feel is that it is, when I look around and I assume that I'm in community of like-minded, like-hearted, and like-motivated people, meaning we speak the same language about community, service, activism, organization, advocacy, etc. We occupy a lot of the same spaces. We seem to be on the same mission, but then realizing that they're in larger numbers than I really wanted to admit at first, and that I actually believe there to be. These people really don't give a fuck. They don't care. It just so happens that their self-interest driven motivators line up pretty good with, you know, at least while they're unchecked and left unexamined, seem to line up really well, if not perfectly, with everything else that's going on. The work, the mission, the language, the advocacy, whatever. But when you look at it, and they're not really traps, but if you create opportunities for people to, I guess, stand on business, stand on like what they say they're about. What I discovered when I started creating these opportunities, and not like naming people in particular who should do this or suggesting that they should do this, but just creating them and leaving them there. The amount of people who do not step up is staggering. Almost 100% of the time, no one will step up. No one will say anything. So I stopped doing that because that started to create in my mind, you know, barriers due to resentment, and bias. You know, I can admit this shit. So I had to stop doing that and just being like, okay, well, I'm just going to focus on the work that I can do, connect with the people who genuinely and authentically want to do the same thing, and we'll just go from there. And it became harder. I don't know if it became harder, but I realized how difficult it was, where I'd presumed that it wasn't that difficult. But I actually realized how difficult it was to find those people, and that those people actually had the time, because if they weren't consumed by all of the other things that they're doing. And that sucks, because it's only a few things then in my mind. It is, perhaps I'm fucked up and I have this wackadoo vision of the world that is completely unrealistic, irrational, and makes zero sense. And I see things that other people just don't see. Like, I'm making these things up, and I have an unidentified pathology that makes me see things in the world that aren't there. Or most of you motherfuckers see the same shit as I do. You just don't You choose not to engage it. You choose not to say anything. You choose to prop up the status quo, and you choose to step over the best interest of community, which you claim to serve intentionally in preference for yours. And what I mean by that is not to say that people shouldn't protect themselves and look out for their own best interests. I'm not saying that. But if every single time you prioritize in times where you stand to risk very little but still prioritize your security and safety, whether it be socially, professionally, whatever, you prioritize you over hard things and potentially the risk to like social injury or losing a bit of privilege or comfortability. If you consistently prioritize your own self-interest in those situations, you ain't shit. You ain't shit, period. And I'm talking about within services. But this kind of shit goes on in life. So anyway, that's the kind of thing that burns me out. That's the kind of thing that, like, I mean, although in the moment, like, who doesn't love a good fight? Especially when you feel like you're fighting for the right things. It isn't in those moments that I feel disheartened, but it's outside of those moments where it's like, fuck, man. Why shouldn't I then be like everybody else? Why shouldn't I then just say, screw it and look out for myself and, give lip service, which we all understand is bullshit about each other because it doesn't align with the shit that we're actually doing. Just give this lip service, look out for me and mines, and just like, hey, fuck it. I look good and you can check these boxes, but then how do I sleep? It's crazy, man. And when it started to really occur to me, it was like, all right, so in a world that we in these spaces all sit around and talk about is so imperfect and fucked up, and how we have to like band together for this fight, and we have to be united. I started seeing like, again, maybe it's because I had a false assumption that individualism and tribalism existed or didn't exist or existed in smaller amounts than it actually did in these spaces, or than it actually does in these spaces. So to me, it's just like this, whoa, what the fuck? Because going back to what we were just talking about a second ago, if we all see the same things happening, but we all choose not to say anything, and I'm so fucking sick of everywhere I go that I'm the only one stepping up and saying shit about shit. What does that say about us as people? What does it say, like, that I don't want to get involved in that, I just want to live my life? Right. But I don't know. Maybe I'm a nutcase because I feel like if I see something happening and I'm in a position to make a difference, example given, maybe I'm paid in my role specifically is to be a person who at least tries to make a difference. And if I don't, what the fuck? This shit is crazy. It's like, because when I think about, like I say, poverty, addiction, mental health, all that stuff coming into, of course, you're going to have experiences with this stuff that's going to be, most of this stuff exists in between these borders. But then you have shit way out here. that you don't see as often that's going to throw you. And you could be like, whoa, is it all like this? Well, you would think that if you didn't have the experience with all of this stuff most of the time. So our expectations should be met for all of those things based on our experience with all of this shit right here. I mean, I think that's pretty logical, but still, so many times I hear people say, oh, this is just burning me out. I'm just burnt out on this. It's probably, well, it's got to be multifaceted, right? It's not just, the injury that I referenced, that I think that I incur, that has more to do with, bad actors or people who have just gotten comfortable. They found a spot where they understand how much effort they need to put forward, how much of X, Y, or Z they need to leverage for good optics, meaning, to look good for whoever, especially people who are far removed that you don't have, daily experiences with. You literally have carte blanche over the flow of information between what's going on here, you and them. And if you've got good social capital and working capital, fuck, they believe everything that you say. Just that right there. Thinking that there's no victim in that kind of manipulation or that kind of leverage is so wild to me, because you become a funnel and a bottleneck for information, and you start, that's censorship. You're curating information based on self-interest driven motives. This is not how this stuff is supposed to work, and it's so frustrating. Like, you, a person as a BIPOC professional, you might mistakenly identify something like this as a racial barrier, as you attempting to or being forced to shout up and over these kinds of information bottlenecks, when in fact that's not it at all. It's not even that sinister. It's way simpler and so much more petty than that. It is simply ego-driven wackadoo bullshit, and it's crazy. And I see it happening all the time. But I guess this is the drawback to humanity, right? Like, that's that thing about power and authority, or even just like the dynamics of power. You don't even have to have a lot of power to have this weird propensity to want to abuse it in order just to make yourself feel better. And I know that sounds conspiratorial and all is 2024. And, people like, I don't know anyone who's that crazy or who's that manipulative. Trust me, you do though. You do. Anyway, all of that to say, that is where I think a majority of the burnout comes for me. Hold on one second, I gotta send something. That's where a majority of the burnout comes for me. And I don't even really know that I would necessarily call it burnout, other than just supremely discouraged, man. Because I don't think that it's naive to have a hope that you find a space that's just real, that's just authentic, that where you can anchor with people on shit that's important. No, I'm not saying that whole world is fake and I'm not. That's crazy. I don't know a whole lot of people. I just know like I'm a keen observer and I see a lot of shit. And I see the games that are played and I see the social pole vaulting and the bureaucracy and just all the weird shit that so many of us say that we hate and abhor but partake in. The weirdest shit, though, is that it's justified because you're doing it against the quote-unquote bad guys. That ain't how this fucking hero's tale works, man. If you're doing the same shit as the bad guys, you a bad guy. You don't read comic books? That's how that shit goes. The good guys aren't supposed to break the rules. That's how that shit goes. Because evil will fucking lose. That's the principle, the overriding principle and the moral to the story always is that evil will fucking lose in the end. Maybe not in this battle, but ultimately in the war. You're not supposed to do the fuck shit that the bad guys do. Because that makes you a fucking bad guy. Damn, man. When people lose that, you lose yourself, man. And I think is, again, one of the misidentified things that a lot of us have become afraid of. And term it burnout. Because if you're not afraid of that, and you can persist and lean into it, I don't know. What does that say? What does that say? What does that mean? Craziness. We haven't talked about bodybuilding for a while. Let's talk about that. We'll end this on a positive note. So things are going fantastico. I competed at my last show. Weighed in at 197. That was in July. It was July 13th. Well, I weighed in 197 July 12th. No. July 13th. Competed that afternoon. This morning, weighed 240. We're right in the peak of this bulk. Wait, we're calling it a winter arc now? I don't even know what that means. What the hell is a winter arc? I saw that on social media. I was like, what is that? What is a winter arc? What is that? Anyway, we're just massing right now, and we've reached the peak of it. So starting next week, we will start to slowly taper down, and then I think just kind of end this more aggressive push, and just kind of maintain. So just take all the newly acquired tissue, over those next few months before we start to start prep again, and just really just like as much as we can, given the space and time. Weird hair in my mouth. Get as much maturity out of that as we can. Really just hammer in some detail. While the body fat's still high, and we're at lower risk to injury, and then how it go. Start just drop the calories. Start dropping the calories, increasing the movement. Start leaning out. And I'm gonna tell y'all something, man. This year's gonna be crazy. So my wife made a good point to me the other day. I was like, man, about a couple weeks ago, I was kind of discouraged, and I wasn't sure about whether or not I was going to continue competing in bodybuilding after this next year. I wasn't even sure that I was going to do this next year. But she was like, either way that it goes, I think that you could probably relieve yourself of a lot of that pressure, because just look at what you've done in this. So this coming up will be my third competitive year. Look at what you did. Like, I went from, there was a 20-pound stage difference from my first year to my second year. That's wild. That's wild. Not as wild that for me, since I'm not like a seasoned bodybuilder, it gets harder and harder the bigger you are and the older you get to put on like muscle like that. So to go from 178 to 198, and it wasn't even a year. It was less than a year because we didn't mass that entire time, and I might have actually lost a bit of size. Maybe not much though, because we didn't diet aggressively at all. That's why I was kept chatting. Like I was like my coach. I'm like, damn, this is crazy. This is how it's supposed to be. She was like, yeah, because my first experience with prep was a nightmare. I'm surprised they even had the heart enough to come back and compete a second year, and that felt intentional. But anyway, 20 pounds between my first year and the second year, and it's already shaping up that I'm not gonna make certain weight limits for certain divisions, so the approach is going to be a little bit different. But it would be wild to roll in. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't think that I don't think I'll get another 20-pound increase. My guess is maybe a solid 10. I'd say 10, 8 to 10 for sure, 8 to 10. So, you know, solid 208, 209, 210 would be fire. 210 would be dope. I would be jacked at 210. 210 would be dope. But, I mean, even that, and we'll have to see, because it looks like I might just be going open. Who knows? Who knows? Sometimes you just kind of got to build into the show, and I have no idea what I'm going to look like, how this is all going to shake out over these next 7-8 months or however long we continue this and then begin prep. But what I do know is that it's going to be hurt feelings season 2. Because last year was, that was the motto. We're coming to hurt some feelings. So this is going to be, we're coming to hurt some feelings season 2. It's going to be really, really aggressive. Really aggressive. I got a plan for stage, for how I'm going to be on stage. And I was pretty aggressive this last year, but I'm going to be even more aggressive on stage this year. Because I really want to stand out. So that's the plan, Stan. And I feel good. Just building muscle over here, building a legacy over here. Can I just point something out? 6 years ago, when I got clean, this podcast wasn't even an idea. Bodybuilding, never in a million years, never, ever. Even on my best day back then, projecting into the future, would I've ever thought my life would look like this? That'd be going into my 3rd year of competitive bodybuilding, doing the work that I do, podcasting, doing the other work that I do outside of my actual career. No. Sober was the goal. Intact family was the goal. All of this other stuff is pretty outstanding, man. And I highlight that not to flex, but to say, man, that version of your life, if you're someone that's struggling, that version, just take me out of it and slide in your own story, because this is not a story unique to me. I'm not some, statistical anomaly. Well, that might be true, but this isn't a reality that I just pulled out of my ass, right? This is something that I said, this is what I'm going to do. And when I mean this, I say have a good life, have recovery, have my family intact, have serenity, have peace, and be making progress and somehow be of service. Like that, those things I knew for sure. I mean, when I got clean, I didn't even start working out again until I was 1.5, 2 years clean. And even then, stepping on stage, I never even thought about it. But now look at me go. And as my wife pointed out, just look at what I've accomplished in such a short period of time. 20 pounds stage weight between 1 and 2 years. Went from 5th place, center 5th place, to my 2nd year, second place in my second show. And then in my third show, took a first place trophy. That's pretty good fucking progress. And there were only 2 weeks. It was dope about like the 2 weeks between shows. My first show this year, and my second show this year is I went and got the judges' feedback and went to the coach and we was like, bet, we got that. Came back in. That's where we got that first place trophy. So now, understanding how I move through these phases, how I move through this process, have a great relationship with my coach. They understand my body and how it responds to different things and timing and how I am as a person and the things that I respond to as a person. I'm telling you, this third year is going to be special. It's going to be real special. Because what I say, I'm already up. We're already up 40 pounds. We're already up 40 pounds. And that's crazy, too, because I still have appetite. I'm still gaining weight. I'm not putting on a ton of extra fat. I mean, definitely body fat is high. But I still have soft abs. I still have conditioning, good, decent conditioning. And I don't feel bloated, and it's not hard for me to get food down. And the biggest thing, so this is for any of y'all out there, if you're wondering if your diet's off, if you're into like intense training, right? So this is just for y'all. If you're wondering if your diet's off or whatever, if you need to make some changes, look at gym performance. Look at your gym performance, right? All of the things that we do outside of the gym should complement how we perform inside of the gym. So if we're performing poorly inside of the gym, really take a look at what I think of two or three things, which would be nutrition, obviously, recovery, so meaning sleep and how well you're recovering from your training. These two, nutrition and recovery, they're going to kind of go hand in hand, because if you don't have proper nutrition, you're not going to recover properly. So recovery, meaning sleep, hydration, stress management, etc. In gym performance, like I say, gym performance. So what do I mean by gym performance? So if you're trying to build muscle and some things happen like strength gains stagnate, right? So progressively overloading. Say you're in a steady tick of 2.5 pounds to 5 pounds added to certain lifts, two out of three of your lifts per week. And you click like that, click along like that for months. And then all of a sudden you can't do that anymore. Your endurance during training starts to decline. So meaning you get gassed quicker. You've got less strength and energy through sets that you historically did fine. Shit like that. So when that kind of stuff starts to slip in the gym, you start to look at the other three factors. Am I resting? How am I managing stress? How am I eating? How is that impacting my recovery? And what kind of approach you're currently taking. So if you are in a massing phase or a bulk or whatever, you're trying to build muscle, have you been bulking for too long and has body fat gotten too high? Because that can definitely impact recovery, gym performance. And if you're just tired of really pushing calories, it can impact your digestion and your appetite, and it's getting harder and harder to get food down. So it may be time for, a little mini cut, or depending on how much body fat you put on, an actual cut. Maybe not to get stage lean, but lean enough, maybe between 12 to 15% body fat, where you've got great separation, some vascularity, some abs and shit like that, and you feel good. And kick it there for, I wouldn't really push it past 12 to 15 is pretty realistic. A lot of people can exist there pretty well and don't suffer from being too lean. If we're talking about stage lean, it's not built for longevity. I know that some people stay just like super shredded year round, but it is terrible for you. I don't suggest it. It's fucking miserable, and I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. 12 to 15, you can look absolutely more diced than 80%, probably 90% of your community, and feel great. But if you've been dieting for a long period of time, and I would say what I would classify as overkill is dieting more than like 19 weeks, 4 or 5 months. If you've been dieting like consistently without like a diet break, again, it's the same deal, bulking or cutting. You just you can't exist at a deficit, right? You're going to plateau again. So you kind of approach this thing like this, right? But instead of having these huge ups and downs, you just kind of have this wave that if it kind of evens out, right? So you have more even keel shit going on. Let's see what else. And hell, man, and if none of this shit's for you, cool. Maybe you like pickleball, or maybe badminton, bridge club, whatever. I'm just talking to people out there who are interested in building a little bit of muscle, burning a little bit of fat. But anyway, yeah, I think that's about it. Talking all this shit. But hey, man, listen, if you didn't do it on the way in, do it on your way out. Hit that like, subscribe, and post notification bell. Put that mother on all so you can stay up to date on all this stuff we talk about. And do me a favor, man. If you're watching the videos, hit the like button. Even if you don't share it, leave a comment. Hit the like button. It helps your boy out with the algorithm. But anyway, peace, y'all.